Hey, just so you know, if we get robbed, I'm legally barred from defending the store.
Let me guess, because your hands have been registered as deadly weapons?
Yes? How did you know?
Heard it 1,000 times. What, did you take a karate class? Jiu-jitsu?
Actually, I've been getting pretty seriously into Pilates.
Oh, enough said.
Welcome to Rewind Video. I'm Bob.
I'm Rob.
And we love movies. Good ones, bad ones, old ones, new ones, peaceful films, violent films. So for the uninitiated, the Rewind Video store, located in a pretty friendly part of town, wouldn't you say?
For the most part.
Yeah. We're about a block away from the grocery store, just down the street from the post office, police station right around the corner.
School.
Yeah. Safe to say that you can walk the streets in front of our store without any concern. Now, that's not to say we don't get some riffraff wandering through the doors, and that's why I've made the bold decision to invest in some protection for the two of us when we're working our shift.
It's about time.
Yeah, long time coming.
Can they work at the register?
No, because that's where the protection is located. So right beneath the cash register, there's now a long strike modulus blaster with a barrel extension. So the manufacturer of this weapon is a company called Nerf.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And what sold me on this fine piece of equipment is the 24-inch barrel, ideal for a patient accurate shot. It's got a 2-leg base, detachable scope, so, just to ensure that we hit whatever we're aiming at. Also a shoulder butt to minimize recoil. There's 2 additional magazines if we run out of ammo. This gun, always going to be within reach when we're going about our business in a store, like when we're updating the staff.
This sounds like a great idea.
Yeah. I mean, I can't imagine why we waited this long, to be honest. So yeah, when we're doing things like stocking the staff recommendation shelf with movies that our customers should add to their watch lists, we're going to be protected. And as many know, each time we update the shelf, we adhere to a theme. This week's theme is weapons.
Locked and loaded.
Indeed. So this was my theme, if I remember correctly.
It was, yeah. You chose this.
Yeah. This felt like a good idea at the time. And I can't say that I really had a firm plan in mind for what weapons was going to be.
It doesn't seem like you normally do.
Rarely. I just walk in the doors. I'm like, am I even working today?
Yeah. And I just say yes and go home.
Right. But, once doing some digging and choosing some films, I feel like there's a lot to talk about as it relates to weapons. Conflict is interesting in movies, but also interesting are the tools that characters use to engage in conflict, and weapons are oftentimes those tools.
Weapons are good thing to use in lots of situations.
Yes.
Sometimes weapons can be characters in the movie, but the real weapons are the friends we made along the way.
Right. Naturally. Yes. So I think we've got some interesting takes on weapons tonight. I've watched all of your movies. I've watched all of mine. Very eager to talk about several of them. So I think we should just waste no time diving in and get right into your first weapon and the movie associated with it.
Diving right in. Okay. I'm choosing the movie Kill Bill Volume 1.
Fine choice.
From 2003. This is, of course, written and directed by Quentin Tarantino. This is filed under Real Steel.
Oh, yeah.
Back of the box. An assassin is shot by her ruthless employer, Bill, and other members of their assassination circle, but she lives to plot her vengeance. Tagline: a roaring rampage of revenge.
A lot of R's.
A lot of R's. Not good. Not good.
No, it's not.
I do realize there are other taglines for these movies, but, we generally go with what's on Letterboxd. And,
yes.
Sometimes I look up other taglines on IMDb or whatnot, for instance, and even those, there was nothing good here. They're all not very good.
Well, interestingly, this is still a better tagline than one of my taglines for tonight. So the bar is actually, it could go lower.
Yeah. Tarantino has talked a lot about how he's only going to make 10 movies before he retires. But he considers the Kill Bill movies only one movie. And because,
really?
Yeah. So he's already made 10 movies, Right? Like we had to buy 2 tickets. We had to buy 2 different DVDs. Right. When people rent them at the store,
we charge them twice.
Charge them twice. It's not one price. We have to watch 2 sets of credits. So the idea that it's only one movie like is ridiculous. It was one production. I get it, but it is 2 movies.
This is a nitpick that I agree with, and I want to circle back to this after we talk a little bit about the film because I have an annoying problem with this movie, but we'll get to that.
Okay. Also, like this is one of the few movies that is like a part 1 or volume 1, because generally you don't get that. Even the recent Mission Impossible, that was a part 1. It's no longer a part 1. They took it off. So,
they did.
I can't really think of too many others that were part 1.
No, I mean, have the Back to the Future movies kind of adopted that moniker, like Back to the Future Part 1, Back to the Future Part 2.
Yeah, but when it came out, it was Back to the Future.
Yeah, for sure.
Kill Bill came out, it was Volume 1. It's always been Volume 1.
Yeah.
I think it's Tarantino's best use of music. You know how I feel about music in a movie?
I do.
And like the way it controls the energy of the movie.
Oh yeah.
Beat by beat. You could say it gets a little heavy-handed, but I don't know. It works for me.
Yes, I agree. I love the music in this movie.
And it has some of my favorite music cues of all time, including at the House of Blue Leaves.
Yeah.
But also during the scene where Hattori Hanzo is presenting his sword, we get Zamfir, master of the pan flute. Do you remember Zamfir?
Yes.
When I believe it was just like commercials.
Yeah.
And he sold CDs online. Or actually, it might have been tapes at first.
Yeah.
And it was just some dude, I think from like, I don't know, Istanbul or something, that was just on TV playing a pan flute, selling CDs, and somehow Tarantino found one of those and decided to put it in his movie.
He must have bought one of those CDs off of the infomercial.
I'm sure he did.
Yeah, absolutely.
I have a big question about this movie. Maybe I don't know if it's the same one you have. How come the LAPD couldn't track down the pussy wagon?
Jesus Christ, that's a fucking great question.
It never occurred to me until I watched it this time. Especially when Uma Thurman's in the back of that car for 13 hours.
Yeah. At
the hospital he was murdered at.
Right.
And presumably she couldn't have hidden his body because she can't walk.
Right.
So somebody found his body.
Yeah.
He was murdered at the hospital and no one thought like, let's check the car.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, it's that vehicle has to be a big X marks the spot for anyone who's trying to solve a crime.
or the LAPD has to be on the lookout for a car.
Yeah.
And like, there's not a car that's easier to find than the pussy wagon.
Tarantino's not concerned with that.
Yeah, that's true. I guess I'm not either. It was one of those things that was like, really?
Yeah.
But the weapon in this movie, I'm of course mostly speaking of the Hattori Hanzo sword.
Yes.
And in this universe, it is the greatest weapon in existence.
Nothing can compete.
Nothing can compete. It holds a place of reverence, perhaps superpowers. I don't really know. There's a very limited number in existence, and so they, even just to get one is a kind of an accomplishment, and they're basically priceless.
Yeah.
Or $450, which is what Bud got for it in part 2. And it also takes him a month to make one sword.
Yeah.
Which I don't understand. He didn't say why. Is the process that complicated? Is he like working for like a month to make that sword? Or does he have to go out and get the equipment together? Does he have to like rebuild his studio, find the materials?
It's an excellent question.
Yeah. Also, I mean, maybe it's just because he's running that sushi shop.
Yeah.
He's like, listen, I work full time. I've got a sushi shop. I've got an employee. I've got a family. Maybe he has a family. We don't know. He's like, I can only do it on nights and weekends. It's going to take me a month. You can sleep up here, but don't bother my kids.
This is not a 1-to-1 comparison, but I mean, I've seen this movie several times. This time, upon this rewatch, I was reminded of the episode where we talked about The Color of Money and the role of the Balabushka Q in that movie. That just, I mean, it's this thing that has such mystique to it that brings out something special in the main character, and of course, very different things. But
well, maybe it's not that different though.
Maybe not.
I mean, it's kind of an unexplained power,
right?
That may or may not even exist.
Yeah.
But then when Hattori Hanzo is done, it's basically the perfect sword. And this is a guy who's known for making perfect swords, and even he's like,
that's all he does.
This is my best. He's like, this is the best one. So it's like it's one of the most iconic weapons in movie history.
Yeah.
So I think this movie definitely belongs on the shelf. To me, this is a 5-star movie. I think it's my favorite Tarantino movie. I found a 5-star review on Letterboxd that said, she really just had that giant sword on the airplane. Because remember, Okinawa is an island. And this is post 9/11. So
right. How'd that work?
How did that work? I guess you could. I mean, that's something that's so big, you can just be like, I'm shipping it. It's an artifact.
Yeah. That's true. Well, I wanna talk to you about my nitpick, and I gotta preface this by saying this movie is a masterpiece. I love it, and among the many reasons that it's just so wonderful is immersion. I mean, I think you mentioned it with the music cues and just everything about this. You're so locked into this world, right? So I find some of Tarantino's choices during the opening credits scene to be very distracting and to take away from that immersion for me.
Okay.
So the first instance is that retro feature presentation intro that precedes the movie. And then when he says, or when he throws up that art card that says Quentin Tarantino's 4th movie, both of those really distract me. I know that the feature presentation thing is supposed to recall the 70s. This movie does not take place in the 70s. Or if nothing else, like it makes me feel like he's trying to ground me in this era of filmmaking that perhaps I'm supposed to be thinking about when I go into this. But even the mentioning of it being his 4th film immediately just has me thinking about the other movies he's made. Right, and I'd much rather just be locked into the Kill Bill world. And each of those choices, I just think, do away with it. Just let me enjoy Kill Bill for what it is.
I think I kind of agree with you about the second part of that. The first part doesn't bother me. I like the opening, the whatever you want to call those, the sizzles on the front.
Yeah.
Those don't bother me. But yeah, I think he views his career as like just this one library of films. Right. Like this 10-volume set that you're going to put on your shelf. And that's why he's always like, I'm going to make 10 movies. And this is like, and he hasn't always necessarily known exactly what they were going to be, but he's always envisioned his career output as this like volume of things. And so, yeah, I think that's part of it. And like, I agree with you. Like, why, like, you don't need to do that. You don't need to make that part of that of the credits. Yeah. So I don't disagree with you on that.
Well, I got to just reiterate, it doesn't ruin how wonderful Kill Bill is for me, and these are just minor things that happen before the actual story begins. But man, some of the Quentin Tarantino just has this magical way of summoning performances from his actors that I just don't think you see in other works. Like Vivica Fox is different in this movie than she is in anything else that I've ever seen her in. And I mean, even Uma Thurman, this is just an incredible character for her. And I know that she went through a lot to play this part, but boy, it's just there's something special about the way he directs.
He knows exactly what he wants. Yeah. And he's at a point in his career that he can get pretty much exactly what he wants. He can hire whoever he wants, and that person will generally want to be working for him.
Yes. Well, I'm so glad I had another reason to watch this. It was a treat, as it always is. All right, I'm going in a very different direction with my first choice. And my initial pick is from 2013. It comes from the Love Gun section of the store. And it is Before Midnight. Back of the box synopsis. Jesse and Celine first met in their 20s and before sunrise, reunited in their 30s and before sunset, and now, in director Richard Linklater's amazing Before Midnight, they face the past, present, and future, family, romance, and love. Now married and in Greece, the couple looks for a night of passion, but instead, their idyllic night turns into a test of their relationship and a discussion of what the future holds for them. Tagline, everything's better with maturity.
We don't need to hear that
a lot for
at
me.
the top.
Right. My affection for Linklater's Before trilogy is pretty well documented. I've even brought the second movie from this trilogy to the the staff recommendation shelf in the past. This is the third movie, and while the two central characters are the same, the vibe here very different, I would say, from the two movies that precede it.
I mean, that's kind of the hallmark of the series. Is each movie is very different, based on where they are in their lives.
Yeah, and while love and attraction is very much a part of the first two, this is the first time that we get real conflict, like real conflict. The two characters disagree at different points in the other movies, but this is conflict.
This is also the first time we get other characters with speaking roles.
Yeah. Apart from like the gypsy in the first movie, and like there's like minor parts,
waiter or something,
right? Yeah, like these characters are actually like part of Celine and Jesse's life, including their kids, which they have. So yeah, I brought this to the shelf for tonight's theme because the weapons at play here are words. So this is a film that I hadn't returned to as frequently as the first two. Admittedly, I'm more fond of Jesse and Celine's romantic trajectory. And while dispute is a natural part of every relationship, it's not my favorite thing to see with this couple.
Yeah.
And the argument that unfolds between these two characters is indeed pretty intense. I don't believe that words are always weaponized in a verbal conflict, but here we see the worst type of argument unfold. It's one where each character is saying some fucking hurtful things to the other person, and the fight evolves from being focused on this topic of the family upending their life and moving from Europe to America, and then it goes to being driven by like some personal attacks at each other.
Oh yeah, they get mean. But it's, I don't know, there's something about it it's just good to be back with them.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
But yeah, it's hard to watch it, but I don't know, it's part of life.
I agree completely. And it's anyone who's been in a relationship. And I think a valid criticism of a lot of romantic comedies and romantic movies in general is that, wow, you're only showing me the good stuff. And this finally gives us a taste of some of the bad. And yeah, so why did I choose this is because words hurt, insults sting. And while watching conflict in movies is nothing new, it definitely has different weight here. I think there are two whole movies and 18 years of real time that precede this movie devoted to these two lovers finding one another, finding each other again, and then finally getting together. So when you see this long-awaited romance start to fracture, it's difficult. It's not the same as just like two characters who are happy at the beginning of the movie fighting in the middle. It hits different, you know?
Yeah, it's almost like, well, why is it all this built up?
Yeah.
Right. What's this really about?
Yeah. Yeah.
And we're almost like put in the place of the kids. Like, why are mommy and daddy fighting?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, there were times, I remember the first time I watched this being very surprised, and like, you have that feeling of like wanting to yell at the screen and just like, please stop fighting.
Just stop. You don't have to do this.
Yeah. And I think the reason it's difficult to watch is because it feels pretty real. This, for better or worse, is how couples can fight, and words as weapons are plucked from the armory, and it gets painful. But to a point that you made earlier, Ethan Hawke once said about these movies that Before Sunrise is a film about what might be, Before Sunrise is a film about what could or should be, and Before Midnight is a film about what is. And what it is sometimes not pretty.
And that's kind of what getting older is about, whether you're in a relationship or not.
Yeah.
You know, when you're in your 20s, you're like, oh, this stuff could happen, and then your options narrow as you get older.
Indeed.
Sometimes that's a very good thing.
Also,
you know, it's a good thing that like being an astronaut's like not on my radar.
Yeah, you know? 100%. Well, you know, all of that said, I still love that this takes the relationship out of fairy tale land and it gives us a more real and quite sobering depiction of what love can be like for two people who are dealing with life in addition to being a good partner to one another. Like the two movies that came before it, Before Midnight was released to pretty widespread acclaim. It's still an outstanding conclusion to the trilogy. And while we might someday get another entry, the 9-year gap between each film has already come and gone. We would have needed another sequel in 2022 in order for the trajectory to stay intact, but who knows what the future holds.
I mean, it's never off the table when you're talking about Linklater. Mm-hmm. You know, he always has something secret going on. He's always making some movie that's like, 25 years in development and stuff. Right. So like, you never really know. I'd be pretty surprised if we don't get at least one more of these.
I agree. At the same time, I wouldn't be disappointed if this is where it ends, because it's rather poignant that Celine and Jesse's first meeting was inspired by both of them wanting to get away from a bickering couple on a train. And that leads me to believe that maybe the saga ends here, even if the relationship is still intact, because, now we've kind of come full circle. They've become the couple that is bickering. And, it seems like they've preserved things, but who knows? This has a 4.1 on Letterboxd. 22% of users align with my 5-star review. However, I did pluck a 4.5-star review from the user Sierra, who said in all caps, "Yeah, this fucking hurt." Going on the shelf as my first pick for weapons.
Yeah, it can hurt, but it can hurt good.
It can hurt good.
It can hurt good.
Yeah.
Words hurt, love hurts. Okay, I'm gonna take us back to weapons, back to bloody weapons.
Yes.
Taking us to 1991 for Terminator 2: Judgment Day.
Fuck yes.
This is filed under Real Steel. Directed by James Cameron. Here's the back of the box. Nearly 10 years have passed since Sarah Connor was targeted for termination by a cyborg from the future. Now her son, John, the future leader of the Resistance, is the target for a newer, more deadly Terminator. Once again, the Resistance has managed to send a protector back to attempt to save John and his mother, Sarah. Tagline, "It's nothing personal." Is that from this movie? I don't know. It doesn't. It could be for a lot of stuff.
Yeah, I agree.
Of course, this is the sequel to The Terminator.
Right.
Glad they dropped the. You can't do the Terminator 2. Yeah. It doesn't. Right. It doesn't work. The budget for this was about $100 million, which at the time was the most expensive movie ever made. And I think James Cameron made the most expensive movie ever made like several times. Yeah. He just kept doing it.
And the most profitable movie several times.
Several times, almost every time.
They got all that money back.
Yeah. So he keeps spending the money, but he makes it back. Mm-hmm. The visual effects in this movie are, I think, kind of what this movie is best known for. The liquid metal guy is what people remember.
There was a whole generation of people who don't understand what it was like to live at a time where you're impressed by special effects. Not even just impressed, but you watch movies and you see special effects and you think, how did they do that?
Right.
And that was something that happened here. It happened in Jurassic Park. It happened here. And I can remember watching this and just being completely flabbergasted by the effects.
Jurassic Park was 93, right? So this was 2 full years before that.
Right.
We'd never seen anything like it. This, like I've said before, 91 was when I came online. So like this was like my first like favorite movie.
Yeah.
The first one that I remember being like, oh, this is my favorite. When I actually meant it.
Did you see this in theaters?
Yeah, I definitely saw it in theaters. It was one of the first movies I saw in theaters, like without my parents. I don't know exactly how, because I think it's R.
Yeah.
But the effects totally hold up.
Oh my God. They look, I think, better than a lot of modern movies because there's a great combination of practical stuff and CG, and it just feels real.
Right. And it made me realize that what you have to do is you have to focus on it looking good, not real. Because you can look at this and be like, well, it doesn't look real. Well, it doesn't have to look real. It has to look good.
It has to look good.
And so like if it looks good, and this is something John Carpenter was a master at. Just make it look good. No one cares if it looks real.
Right. You're not thinking about that.
If you're trying to make it look real too much, it's going to look like shit.
Yes.
This is just like in Jurassic Park. In my opinion, this is the best action movie of all time.
So I'm curious about that because I think action can be defined in so many different ways.
Absolutely.
And I don't even necessarily think of this as an action movie. I think of it as a sci-fi movie, and it's at the tippy top in that category for me. But like when with the action genre being so broad and inclusive of your John Wicks and I mean a lot of the movies we're going to talk about tonight, Kill Bill,
Right.
I don't know. It's hard for me to put it into that box.
For me, well, I guess what I'm saying is if I was going to choose a movie that like I would only go back and watch the action scenes of.
Oh, I see.
This is my number one choice.
Interesting.
I mean, it's, the LA River chase is fucking incredible.
Yes.
I mean, holy fuck.
Yeah.
That motorcycle jump is, are you kidding me? It's fucking crazy. They did that with a wire.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
But like, I mean, that whole thing, I mean, every scene is just like, insane. Like this is the one I would pick.
So if we're going into best of anything, for me, this is the best sequel ever made. There's nothing that holds a candle. It makes the first one better. It's better in every way, just as a movie. And I have a hard time thinking of an instance where the villain becomes the hero in the way that they did here. It was just so new,
and it works so brilliantly.
It does.
But it wasn't a twist. Like it was in the commercials. I think it was advertised. Like this is like a flip. Like he's the good guy now. Mm-hmm. But that doesn't matter.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because another thing that I think modern audiences are not used to with movies is just how completely saturated the market was with all things Terminator 2 when this was coming out, because like you could not turn on MTV without seeing the Guns N' Roses video. The commercials were everywhere. I remember there were like featurettes airing on like Entertainment Tonight, like
the video game, like the stand-up game, but also the Sega game.
Yeah, you could not turn around without seeing something related to T2, and you ended up getting a lot of the movie, not a lot of it, but you got more of this movie than you do from just trailers today, and that was just an interesting phenomenon.
Yeah. So Skynet is like the AI that takes over shit in this movie, and that it's kind of a weapon in itself.
Yeah.
But it made me wonder why because we're in this AI thing now, and and everyone's like, when's it going to take over? It's like, well, it's going to take over when we decide to put it in charge. Like it's not going to do it by itself. Like it's going to be because of like what we decide. And I guess it's just like, why would we do that? We're definitely going to do that. Like it's definitely going to happen. Yeah. But I guess it's like, why would we do it? But like also when? Because like it's not a matter of like when it's capable. It's a matter of when we're convinced it's capable, right? Because like you could put a PlayStation 2 in charge of the nuclear defense right now. Oh, like you don't need it to pass the threshold. Like you can do it right now. But
yeah.
I mean, it doesn't mean we should do it. So I don't know. It's just it seems like one of those things that's inevitable, but also like there's no reason to do it.
Well, it feels like we as people are we find it so irresistible to say, you know what, you can do this for me? I'm going to put you in charge. Like, we have little robots that vacuum for us. We have cars that drive for us. Like, when are we going to say, no, that's too much for the computer?
Right. I mean, it seems like nuclear weapons is like an obvious... Well, I feel like the line shouldn't be right there, but it should feel like nuclear weapons is obviously on one side of that line.
Right.
But, we're stupid. We'll do it.
So are you choosing Skynet as the weapon that is central to this movie? Because I was thinking that you were going to choose one of the Terminators.
Well, I guess I'm not choosing one, but I mean, I don't know if I have to choose just one. But the Terminators, yes, they're weapons themselves. They can be used as weapons. One of the Terminators, the liquid metal one, can just turn into whatever he wants, as long as it's a knife or a stabbing weapon.
Yeah.
There's also a sweet underground arsenal of weapons, which I think is a nice touch when you're dealing with a movie with weapons.
Yes.
But like, there's a fuck ton of like sweet guns in this movie.
Yeah, there are.
There's a mini gun.
Oh, gotta love a good mini gun.
Yeah, I mean, just explodes all these fucking cars. Arnold is using a what do you call it? A
sawed-off shotgun.
Well, great shotgun work. And a lot of it from a motorcycle, which, I mean, that's just totally sweet. But the grenade launcher thing that he uses, whatever that's called, that goes thunk, which, that thing's fucking sweet. It blows walls out. And so, like, you get some, like, fucking great weapons here. So, like, I don't know that I can choose just one. I mean, there's an arsenal of weapons.
Well, I also love that the T-1000 can literally turn into anything. And it does a good job of becoming more than one deadly weapon.
Yes. And I'm glad they do answer the question. I was like, why doesn't it just turn into a bomb? Well, it can't.
Yeah.
So I love this movie. There's some incredible weapons in this movie.
Yes.
Putting it up on the shelf for weapons. It's a 5-star movie for me.
Yeah, 100%.
Alex, a user on Letterboxd, agrees with me. And his review says, my family watches Terminator 2 every Thanksgiving because we're thankful for Terminator 2.
That's, I couldn't have said it better. Yeah, it might need to become a new tradition in my house.
Yeah, I mean, there's not that many Thanksgiving movies, so maybe this should be one of them.
Yes. I could talk about this forever, but boy, it's so good. And this is another case of we're picking another movie from a franchise that has already been covered on the podcast before.
I brought Dark Fate,
which was another fine entry.
I think it is. I think it's an excellent. It's in the top 3 Terminator movies easily. It's very good.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad. Another one that I'm glad you brought to the shelf. I'm going to try to follow that up with a movie from 2009 from the Never Bring an Alien Arm to a Gunfight section of the store. This is District 9. And the back of the box reads like this. 30 years ago, aliens arrived on Earth, not to conquer or give aid, but to find refuge from their dying planet. Separated from humans in a South African area called District 9, the aliens are managed by Multinational United, which is unconcerned with the aliens' welfare, but will do anything to master their advanced technology. When a company field agent contracts a mysterious virus that alters his DNA, there's only one place he can hide, District 9. Tagline, you are not welcome here. Serviceable tagline. Yeah. So, like you, I brought, with my second film, a movie with real physical weapons that characters hold and fire at each other like Floridians do. This is one where weapons play a bigger role. They drive the plot forward, motivating the characters who are hunting the field agent whose DNA was altered by this virus. It's briefly mentioned in the back of the box, but the company that manages District 9, Multinational United, wants to learn how to use the alien weaponry. And because their field agent is slowly becoming an alien, he's able to use their weapons. And as a result, the corporation finally has a way to access this whole arsenal that they've been unable to fire since the extraterrestrials arrived. So this was directed by Neil Blomkamp. It was his first feature. District 9 helped Blomkamp become a pretty marquee name in the sci-fi genre.
Yeah, he was attached to a bunch of stuff that he never made.
Yeah, there was an Alien film that he never made. That was going to like retcon everything after Alien 2. He got this gig because he was plucked to direct an adaptation of the Halo video game series, and that kind of fell through. But Peter Jackson, who was going to produce that, said, this kid's talented. I saw his like spec work for that, what would have been that film. And so Peter Jackson was like, here's $30 million. Go make whatever the fuck you want. And this is what he delivered. So
This was a hit, right? I mean, it had to have made that money back.
Oh, this returned $210 million worldwide against that budget. So it shows why Blomkamp went on to become pretty sought after following this release. Nothing he did after this really lived up. I mean, it was Chappie and Elysium, and both of those movies.
The car racing movie.
Gran Turismo. Yeah. And he had some other, I can't remember what, Demonic from 2021. Okay. But he disappeared for a while and just made some like short films. But yeah, District 9 mostly stars South African actors. This is where Blomkamp is from. Highlighting the cast is Charlton Copley, who appears in several of the director's films. He's the field agent whose DNA was altered, and he was not even an actor when he was cast for this. He was just somebody that Blomkamp knew and was like, "Some guy pretty good for this." Yeah, and he was. I mean, he delivers a pretty amazing performance. So why did I choose this? This is a movie where weapons are everywhere. Oh, yeah. Yeah, there's some like familiar ones that the humans use, but then we get the wacky ones that the aliens use.
And plus the characters are constantly talking about weapons and thinking about weapons and drawing pictures of weapons.
Weapons. Yeah, it's all they're after. And I like some of the wacky alien weapons. There's like a sonic boom weapon. There's like one fires electricity, one like incinerates people. Just some like imaginative stuff.
I also like it's like aliens, but they just got guns. It's just different kinds of guns.
Right.
What else are they going to be? Like, are they going to use not guns?
Exactly.
No, those are weapons, guns.
But I feel like there is also, in addition to all of the gun talk and the weaponry focus in this movie, I think there's also perhaps another interpretation which concerns just the fact that xenophobia plays a pretty central role to this film. And I think what we see happening in this movie is a case of xenophobia being weaponized to a point where it becomes prejudicial, ultimately leading to racism. These aliens are relegated to just shy of concentration camps because.
But it's like you can see how it happens though, right? Yeah. Because it's like, well, like they're literally aliens. It's not even it's not people. It's you know, and so like, well, yeah, what are you supposed to do? Just give them apartments? Like they're not people.
That's true. That's true.
It's an almost impossible problem to solve.
It is, and they don't solve it well. I mean. No. I think this.
Well, but the aliens want to get back on their ship and go home.
They do, yeah.
Right, and so like they're willing to solve the problem themselves, but there's this corporation who's trying to get the weaponry that would rather just keep them there and use them to, you know what I mean? Like they want to use them for their own advantage. Yeah. So that's why it's not doable for the aliens to just go like, we're just going to hop on our ship and go home like we've been trying.
Right.
They have to like come up with a plan.
It's interesting that this movie takes place 30 years after the alien ship arrived because it seems like there is only one alien who knows how to get that ship working again, and all the other ones are just like bumming around just trying to like survive.
Yeah.
Which leads me to believe that maybe they were young when the ship arrived, and now
I think because the one that can figure it out, he was like in the like the commander's ship or whatever.
Right.
And the rest of them, I think they said in the movie, they're basically drones or whatever. So they're just like, they're just dumb and they're just soldiers.
Yeah. I do think that this movie has become perhaps a little bit more relevant since its release as the political situation and dialogue around immigrants, even in America, has become more toxic. I think, the corporation at the center of this story is certainly motivated by gaining access to the alien weapons, but the vast majority of the human population essentially views these alien refugees as scum. Their rights are being taken away. They're being shuffled into like even worse quarters than they're currently living. And I don't know. I think that happens when ideologies and dangerous points of view become weaponized to the point where it motivates people to act violently. So, in spite of the difficult subject matter, this is a beautiful film. I think it's shot incredibly well, especially against that budget. But yeah, the visual effects are still impressive today. Critic reviews were pretty high here. This averages a 3.8 on Letterboxd. 35% of users agree with my 4.0 rating, and so I'm throwing it on the shelf. I think it's a weapon heavy movie.
Yeah,
yes. But it's it still gives you a lot to think about.
Weapons focused.
Yes.
Okay. Well, all right. So you chose District 9.
Uh-huh.
You chose Before Midnight.
Yes.
I chose Kill Bill 1.
We got a number thing going here, Rob.
Terminator 2.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like I've got to go with Death Wish 3 from 1985.
There had to have been a reason that you chose this.
Yeah. This is filed under Real Steel.
Okay. 2 movies from the same section? Is that
No, there was Real Steel. There was Real Steel. Okay. This is Real Steel.
I love it.
Okay, this is the back of the box. Architect/vigilante Paul Kersey arrives back in New York City and is forcibly recruited by a crooked police chief to fight street crime caused by a large gang terrorizing the neighborhoods.
Large does not sum up how big this gang is because it's seemingly hundreds of people.
I mean, at least in this neighborhood, they're like, I don't know, 30% of the population.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah. They just never stop coming once the showdown ensues.
Tagline, he's back in New York bringing justice to the streets. I mean, honestly, that gets you in the theater. That's all you want. Right? Like, if this is what you want, This is the third film in the Charles Bronson-led film series. New York, since Paul Kersey went to L.A. for part 2, he's come back to New York, and it's become a full-blown hellscape.
Oh, unlivable.
Yeah. The neighborhood that they are in is basically a third world country.
Yeah.
It's absolutely ridiculous. This is kind of the Rambo effect, I think, because this third movie, the series has become a complete parody of itself, right?
Quite.
This is like what people thought the original was. This is kind of like the Mad Magazine version of Death Wish. Okay, yeah. Right? Charles Bronson gets a big fucking gun, and he just takes to the streets to enact justice. And, that's what people thought the first movie is, but that is what this movie is.
Oh, yeah, yeah. There's several points in this movie where the director asks the audience, how big of a gun do you think we can put in Charles Bronson's hands? And there's more than one answer.
Yeah, because at first you're like, well, that's the biggest it can get.
Nope.
No, that's not. So the politics of this movie are not quite as subtle as the original Death Wish, I would say.
there's nothing subtle in this movie. Nothing.
This movie is full-blown fascist. I mean, it's 100% pro-gun.
Yeah.
It's unabashedly in favor of vigilantism. The NYPD is out of control in this movie.
Oh, bonkers.
They're doing whatever the fuck they want, and which doesn't include stopping crime. That's not what they do here. The streets have been taken over by gutter Nazis.
Yes.
Paul Kersey is kind of left with no other choice than to just like find the biggest gun he can and like take to the streets as like a one-man state-sponsored goon squad.
Yeah. And
just take him down. Like, he's literally setting traps and setting out bait to increase his body count.
Oh, yeah. This is like, what if Home Alone was, starring a 64-year-old man instead of, a prepubescent Kevin McAllister.
So there's some major artillery in this movie.
There's like an anti-aircraft gun.
Yeah, like Paul Kersey's supposed to be an architect. He's supposed to be just like a regular guy. Mm-hmm. So the excuse they use is he's visiting his friend in New York, who's just like this old dude, and they're like, "Well, he was in the war, so he's got like a rocket launcher in his house or something,"
which he hip fires.
Yeah, so he just got like a whole bunch of shit laying around.
Yeah.
He's got a .475 Magnum, which I don't even know what that is.
Might be pretend.
It's a big gun. It's a real gun.
Is it? I don't know.
It's like a real bullet. Yeah, I guess, but like it is the biggest fucking handgun I've ever seen.
Yeah, I'm trying to compare it to something. It's probably the size of a pineapple with the little leaves on top.
Yeah, Charles Bronson's like, it's got real stopping power. He calls it a shorter version of big game cartridge, and it can make a real mess. But also, so it's like this giant handgun, but also he can shoot it like a rifle. Like he's shooting people from like a block and a half away.
Right.
Pin perfect.
Yes.
Dead on, accurate from long distance.
Yeah.
He also has a 30 caliber machine gun. Which at first his friend shows it to him and he's like, nah. He's like, I don't need that. But like we know we're coming back to the machine gun.
We wouldn't have been introduced to it.
And that's the weapon that he uses in the climactic battle scene to just blow people the fuck away.
Yeah.
It's pretty great. But he also uses a missile launcher, which it's called an anti-personnel weapon, which made me wonder, like, isn't every weapon an anti-personnel weapon?
Yeah, this looks like an anti-personnel weapon if the personnel are in like an aircraft carrier.
Yeah. So this movie just I'm a huge fan of this movie. I love it for completely different reasons than the original. You know, I think I love this movie because it's ridiculous, because it's outlandish, because it makes no sense. And it's just like, no, let's just have some like dirtbags on the street who need to get fucked up, and let's have Charles Bronson fuck them up.
Yeah. Yeah, and you get that. You do get that. There are some things that really annoyed me about this because, so I mean, like, they do a good job of painting him as this like he functions as like a sense of relief to this utter chaos, and he is so sympathetic and cares about the characters in this apartment building who are being terrorized by this gang, and so you feel like he's a man of the people and he's got a good heart. And then his girlfriend, this is a woman who's inconceivably like half his age.
Yeah. And chases him down, like tracks him down,
chases him down. Yeah,
town.
she's on the hunt. And, they go on, they're hitting it off. And she dies a tragic death in a car that explodes.
No,
and he walks up to it. There's tons of explosions. Yeah, he walks up to this car and just like looks at it and be like, "Yep, she's dead," and then turns around and just walks away. And it drove me fucking insane. I was like, come on, you at least walk up and like shed a tear or seem like you care about her.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'll defend that in this way. I'm not sure that he showed a lot of like he didn't show that he cared about her when she was around. You know, he was like, why is this chick why is she chasing me? You know,
that's fair.
He's like, I'll bang you, but whatever. Like.
He did seem like he was developing perhaps some attachment, but
I think at this point in Paul Kersey's life, I don't think he's getting attached to anybody, because he's murdered, I mean,
countless, dozens,
if not hundreds of people on the streets of New York, Los Angeles, and Chicago at this point.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think he has any value for human life. Like even at the police station when she's like first accosting him, she's like all up on his nuts, and he's like, "What do you want, lady? Like what?"
So I liked the villain in the sense that he felt like a villain in this movie.
Yeah.
What I didn't understand were the motivations of this gang, because they seem to be getting by on robbing the residents of this community whenever they want to get money for drugs, and they're using it as just like this piggy bank that they can always reach into. Right. and
they're robbing the people that are the neighborhood people,
right,
for quote protection.
Right. Under the guise that like we're gonna keep you safe. But there comes a point in the movie where they're like, "Fuck that, we're gonna level this neighborhood off the face of the fucking earth."
Right.
And it raised I'm probably overthinking this movie.
Yeah.
But I mean, they're like throwing grenades in any building that has windows, and it's just like, well, okay. I mean, what next? You're killing everybody, and you're destroying this community.
Well, I mean, plus like the economics don't make sense. No. Also, it's like because it seems like we said before, it seems like this gang is 30 to 60% of the neighborhood. And so you can't just keep stealing from like a smaller and smaller portion of the neighborhood,
right?
And have it work. But also, like, if you're most of the neighborhood, why do you want to destroy the neighborhood? Like, you're the only people that live here at a certain point. And everybody you're stealing from is in their like 60s and 70s. Like, that's not going to keep going on forever either.
So it's funny because April watched the end of this movie with me. And when it finished, all of the other Death Wish movies appeared on the screen, and she was like, "Are you sure you watched the right one?" And I was like, "Yes," but the first one didn't really work for me for very different reasons than this one didn't really work for me. But I'm curious if there's a Death Wish in this saga that strikes the right chord for me.
That's a good question. I've seen the second one. The second one's kind of like in the middle of 1 and 3, like as far as, not literally, but
Right.
yes, literally. But it's kind of like between like a straight up Death Wish movie and like the parody we get here.
Yeah.
Which is to say that like it doesn't work as well as either one.
Yeah.
So I like the dichotomy between the two. I haven't seen 4 or 5. I guess there's a 5 as well.
Yeah, there's a fifth.
I have not seen those. To me, I really dig this movie. I give it 4 stars. I found a Letterboxd user named Kai Peringnan who says, successfully sells unhinged conservative class/racial genocide as pretty fun if you're on the side with the bazooka. Which is kind of like that's what this movie is. It like I said, it's not sympathetic in its views.
No,
but it can be kind of fun.
Yes, I will be interested in finding out what our customers think of this one. And who knows? Maybe I'll dip back into the Death Wish saga. Perhaps the next time you choose another Death Wish movie, or just because I'm curious to find one that I like.
This is kind of a midnight movie. This is
That's a good way
this
to put
doesn't have as much to say as maybe the first Death Wish might have. I mean, Death Wish is definitely a midnight movie as well, but this is like definitely like your friends are over, you have a couple 6-packs.
Yeah,
it's late at night.
That's fair. I think that's a great characterization of it. Well,
there's a lot on the line here, Bob.
I know.
We've done Kill Bill 1, Terminator 2, Death Wish 3, District 9, Before Midnight.
Yes. So this might be a stretch, but I'm going to try to make it work.
Okay.
All right. So the absence of a number, would be 0. Like 0 is no number at all. So
that is a stretch.
Yeah, I'm choosing a movie that with its title kind of represents how 0 functions.
Okay.
And so if we were to
there's a 0 in the abstract.
There's a 0 in the abstract. So it would be this movie and then Kill Bill Volume 1, Terminator 2. Okay. Before
this is the prequel for the episode.
Yeah, exactly. So for my final pick, I'm going back to 2017. The movie is called You Were Never Really Here. Kind of Zero-like.
Null set, perhaps.
Exactly. Yeah. This comes from the Hammer Time section of the store. Back of the box. A traumatized veteran, unafraid of violence, tracks down missing girls for a living. When a job spins out of control, Joe's nightmares overtake him as a conspiracy is uncovered, leading to what may be his death trip or his awakening. Tagline, this is the one that I think falls short of even Kill Bill. Based on true events. I don't know if that's...
No, it's not a tagline.
No, that's not a tagline. I don't even know if that's true. I don't think it is, but... Yeah, really lame.
Damn.
So imagine a world where a studio like A24 makes Death Wish 3.
Which, by the way, was made by Canon Pictures, which is like the perfect studio to make something like
exactly, that. Yeah. I think what you get with that equation is You Were Never Really Here. No, Death Wish 3 and this movie are not telling the same story, but they're both vigilante movies. This is an art house take, I would say, on a familiar story.
I think if you're trying to figure out the difference between me and you, between my taste in movies and your taste in movies, I think that's a pretty good comparison. Death Wish 3 and
You Were Never Really
Here.
Yeah. And yet we both love Rad.
Big fan.
Yeah. Both vigilante movies. And I'm not one to blindly appreciate something because it's an indie approach to a narrative. But in a world where we get countless Liam Neeson, everyday citizen enacting justice movies. It's nice to see a more patient, deliberate take on a familiar storyline. And that's what this movie is. I think it's an everyday citizen working as something of a for-hire hitman on jobs that specifically involve abducted girls. And his weapon of choice is a ball-peen hammer.
My favorite hammer.
Oh, yeah?
It's just such a good hammer. It's got, like, it's so, I don't know, it's maneuverable. You know?
So are you talking about this as a tool or as a weapon?
Well, I've never used it as a weapon.
Good.
I feel like if I was going to use it as a weapon, it would still be my favorite.
Oh, okay. All right.
I mean, it's not the biggest,
no,
you know, but it's just like I said, it's just
still a hammer.
Yeah, it's a hammer, but it's like, I don't know, I like the way it swings.
Yeah, specialized hammer. The hitman who wields said hammer is Joaquin Phoenix. Now, we're going to come back to him. This is from director Lynn Ramsey. She's one of the more interesting filmmakers working right now. She's only got 4 features to her name, and she waits years to make them. This was her most recent picture, but before that we need to talk about Kevin in 2011. She did a movie called Malvern Collar in 2002. This was adapted by a book from Jonathan Ames, and the only other actor I recognized in this, apart from Joaquin Phoenix, was John Doman, who plays a character named John McCleary. This actor looks like he could be named either of these names. and people will recognize him from Commissioner Bill Rawls in The Wire. He also looks like Bill Rawls. Yeah. He's a guy who can play parts where characters just have an average name. Like,
just like one of those names.
Yeah. But why did I choose this? So I'm not usually a fan of Joaquin Phoenix's more unorthodox roles. You know, when he goes far left of center, like the Joker or Beau is Afraid, it just feels gimmicky. It feels like a performance. I have a hard time with it. Here, he's captivating. He plays a damaged person, but it's believable. And Lynn Ramsey said that in order to prepare Phoenix for the role, she gave him an audio file to listen to that was a combination of fireworks and gunshots to help him understand what was happening in this character's head.
That's fucked up.
That is fucked up. But that gives you an idea of kind of what's going on with this guy. As it relates to our theme, I do like when characters choose unorthodox weapons to do their violent business. But in this case, the weapon isn't random. I'm not going to spoil why he chooses a ball-peen hammer, but it does relate to why this guy behaves the way he does and why he's even made the choices in life that he's made in terms of like helping to solve these crimes related to abducted girls. The violence here is, I would say, pretty poignant, but the bad guys are so bad that you don't mind seeing them meet a pretty brutal end.
Yeah, like Death Wish 3. I mean,
yeah, the parallels are strong.
Yeah, I mean, there's no gutter Nazis here, but
no,
I mean,
no.
Same deal.
But who knows? We don't spend a lot of time with these bad guys. So for all we know, when they have the clothes on, maybe they are gutter Nazis. Ultimately, though, I think what makes this work is an actor delivering a genuinely memorable performance, a director doing something remarkable with a fairly conventional story, and a composer in Radiohead guitarist Johnny Greenwood, who gives us a stunning score.
Yeah. It's another parallel with Death Wish 3.
Oh, did
Jimmy Page did the score?
Jimmy Page did the score to Death Wish 3.
Also for 2 and 3.
You're kidding.
I'm not kidding. The Jimmy Page did the score, including the smooth jazz opening theme song for Death Wish 3.
Wow.
Yeah. A little bit of trivia for you.
Boy, I can't get over how much these movies have in common. I do think that in another director's hands, this would have been a forgettable straight-to-Netflix crime thriller. I don't think that, we would have gotten an actor delivering something that really made us care about this central character, but Ramsey provides some stopping power. The critic Guy Lodge from Variety called Ramsey probably the world's greatest working filmmaker, which is a lot hyperbolic for my taste.
Yeah, that's a little strong, I'd say. I mean,
I don't quite agree on that. But I did like his take on the film, which he called astonishing, a stark, sinewy, slashed to the bone hitman thriller, far more concerned with the man than the hit, which I think sums it up pretty well.
Yeah, it's a little dour. It's a dour movie.
It is dour, yeah. But you know, if you spend any time at the staff recommendation show,
you'll notice that Bob loves dour.
Yeah, I'm not afraid to get dour on you.
Dour and damaged.
Yeah. This has a 3.7 on Letterboxd. 30% of members agree with my 4-star review. I could see this climbing to 5 for me, but it deserves another watch.
Interesting.
Yeah. I did like Liam F's review that said the very definition of personal growth is realizing more and more every day just how unoriginal Joker is. Which I think with great Joaquin Phoenix performances, that is the right takeaway.
Yeah.
I did not like Joker.
I like Joker.
Do you?
I'm going to defend it. I liked it.
Okay. What's your star rating on Joker?
I give it 4.
4?
Yeah. Yeah, I give Joker 4 stars.
It's too more.
I mean, it's a little derivative of some Scorsese things, but I don't know. It still kind of works for me.
Okay. Well, Rob, this week the staff recommendation shelf is packing some heat with 6 movies that feature weapons.
We're not shooting blanks this week, guys.
No, fully armed. The films we chose, the deal in weaponry, include Kill Bill Volume 1, Before Midnight, Terminator 2, District 9, Death Wish 3, and You Were Never Really Here.
Fantastic. If you like websites, go to rewindvideopod.com where you can drop us a line, get on our mailing list, or find us on social medias.
Until the robots take it over.
Until the robot. Well, I mean, they're in charge of our social media accounts.
Yeah,
Except for Letterboxd. We're really on that.
We're really on that, yes.
That's human run. For now.
Next time, we're going to have a less violent theme on the docket. We're trading conflict for movies that are centered around friendship.
Best buds.
Yes. As usual, we'll have 6 films to recommend. In the meantime, feel free to hit us up for a movie to watch. And we will see you next time.
Be kind. Recommend. Hail Satan.
Hail Satan.